Thank you so much for joining me. I'm meteorologist Brian Shields. It is going to get more active. Watching a couple spots out there, of course, across Florida, the Bahamas, parts of Cuba. Very, very heavy rain down through the Cayman Islands. There's been some flooding. More tropical waves that have been moving in. In this spot here, as you get back toward the western Gulf of Mexico, there could be some development the next few days. But overall, it's been this surge of moisture that's moving in. Now, the first spot to watch will be here because this development that kind of pulls offshore may try to spin up some as it moves away from Florida and away from the southeast coast. But the models are picking up on some development, and now the National Hurricane Center painting this area for that chance to develop. So once you get the Gulf Stream in here too, very warm water. So it wouldn't be surprising to see something try to spin up as it moves away from the continental U.S. Now, no name storms yet, which is normal. The hurricane season just started. The first name on the list is Alberto. So if something does develop into a named storm, first one, Alberto, then Beryl, Chris, Debbie, Ernesto, Francine, and Gordon as we get down the list. Now, other tropical waves out there, not seeing any signs of development in the short term, but as these move into the Caribbean, eventually they could develop some. So a wait and see on that. Now, looking at the European model, we have this big surge of moisture that is in place. So here's Florida, the Bahamas, you get back toward Jamaica. Now you see all of this rain that is around. So what's going to happen here is I just want to take you out in time here. We have initially some flooding, South Florida. There's already been some flooding, but as some of this pulls offshore, look at that. You see that little spin right there? The chance that there could be some development as it moves toward Bermuda. This would be on Friday. So a few days from now, we could see something spin up, and if that gets a name, that would be Alberto. But still overall, either way, regardless if there is a system that develops offshore, there's a lot of rain in some of these same spots. So this area could develop, but with this leftover moisture in place, we're going to be watching out for this area in here too. So you have the Gulf, and this is really the Bay of Campeche right in here. Another chance of something developing, and the models have been hinting at that, both the American and the European. Of course, this is the European model, and as we go out in time, this again Friday, and then going through the weekend into early next week, all of that moisture building in the western Gulf of Mexico, so that does have my attention, and you see the just kind of hinting that something could spin up here. But I don't just look at the computer models. There's a lot to look at. I look at what's going on in the environment. First, you have that surge of moisture in place. So there's no lack of moisture. There's not a lot of dry air. And then on top of that, the water temperatures in the sector are so very warm. This orangey shading or yellow shading you're seeing here, Caribbean and the Gulf and much of the Atlantic, above average temperatures. The water temperatures are more like what we'd get in July. You see them in the Bay of Campeche, about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Or 30 degrees Celsius, so that in itself would also be conducive for some development. And the American model has generally been hinting on that. You have that big surge of moisture. Every now and then on the model runs, you get different, the models update as we go throughout each day. And you can see here the rain, South Florida, still Cuba surging in. There's that other tropical wave as you get toward the southeastern Caribbean. And then going out in time here, this is, let me stop the clock, it's just kind of going out in time. I'll stop the clock here on Friday. You see Friday, this is that area that may spin up off the coast of the Carolinas that the Hurricane Center is also watching. But as I showed you in the European model, that moisture just kind of hangs out. And these water temperatures are so very warm. And the wind shear will be a little bit less. It's still around, but it will be a touch less. So as we go through the weekend, we can see this area spin up, but also watching back here to see how this moisture builds. You see that moisture building back into the Gulf, just like the American model or the European model was showing. And then we'll see if something does try to spin up by this weekend and next week in the Gulf. In the short term, it's this rain, northern Bahamas, back through central and western Cuba, South Florida, the heaviest rain, and then some of that breaks free into central Florida. A lot of wind shear, so it doesn't allow those storms to build up. So not seeing development yet. But with this rain around and then kind of shifting offshore eventually, that's when we could see some development Thursday into Friday right there. Something may try to spin up, but still some of the rain overall hanging around as we get into later this week. And the total is very high, especially South Florida, where we could see upwards of about 15 inches of some rain, less as you get up to the north. The Orlando area could see a few inches before the end of the week is done. But we are going to see a lot of flooding concerns in parts of Florida, northern Bahamas, and parts of Cuba. So the rain surge lifting to the north. The next 3 days, some areas of flooding, some development possible either this weekend and or next week, even later this week on Friday. That system could try to spin up. So we'll be watching the Gulf of Mexico long term, but there could be that spin up also offshore of Florida and the Carolinas that would move away. June on average averages one named storm. So thank you for being with me. I hope you're doing well. Have a good rest of your day.